Should the Niners fire Kyle Shanahan? Should the Niners want a fresh start? Should they look elsewhere for a head coach? Let's look at it from the other perspective. Is it possible that Kyle Shanahan wants a fresh start? Is it possible that he's looking at this team like, man, I don't want to tie myself to Brock Purdy long term. I don't know if he's really that guy. And that Brandon Ayuk contract's awful. And that Christian McCaffrey contract might be even worse. Like, I missed it. We're screwed. This doesn't have to be my problem. I want out. Is that possible?
I mean, Kyle Shanahan to me seems like a guy who doesn't want to. He seems so impatient. Like when you see him fall behind in a game, the look on his face and the play calls and the next 5 plays are always super aggressive, down the field, attacking. We must get back. We must get back now. So you're going to tell me that he's going to be super patient with this roster that's now got a bunch of dead cap on it and a bunch of guys who can't play, who are earning money, and it's going to take a couple of years to kind of cleanse the whole thing and reset. You're telling me he's going to stick around for that? I would say no. That would be my guess. And that's also the other thing we don't know is we don't know about Trey Lance. Did Kyle pick Trey Lance against others saying no, or did he get overruled? Was everybody right at the time? Was Mike Lombardi and all those guys right when they said Kyle loves Mac Jones? Maybe Kyle did love Mac Jones. Maybe he got outvoted. And not that Mac Jones has been great, but maybe he's a little bitter that how the Lance thing came down, that maybe Lance was forced on him. I don't know. If that was the case, I could see some discontent. I also could see the 49ers coming back and saying, hey, look, you know what? You haven't had a lot of success this year. It was a down year. How about you don't have final say on personnel? How about we get rid of this defensive coordinator? How about we get rid of your special team coordinator? How about, and all of a sudden, if things start getting dictated to Kyle, does he say, you know what, screw you, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home? Because he knows that he's going to have, and it's not, people are like, oh, he's not walking away from X number of millions. Come on, that's laughable. True. He's going to get more money if he walks. The next deal that he signs is going to be for bigger money than the deal that he walks away from. So there's no risk on his part at all from walking away. It's just a matter of, does he want to be here? Does he like the Yorks? Does he like Lynch? Does he like the situation? Does he want to stick it out through a year or two of the reset where there might be some pain like the Rams experienced, albeit they experienced it coming off a Super Bowl win, and the Niners don't have that win. So you're going to have to go through those lumps and those publicly while the fan base is still, clamoring for that Super Bowl that you haven't won. So I would say there's at least a shot that at the end of the year, Kyle and the Niners mutually part ways, just the same way that Jim and the Niners mutually parted ways.
I could see Kyle Shanahan saying, you know what, I would like a fresh start. You know what, you guys are unhappy with me. I'm unhappy with you, or I'm unhappy with the future outlooks of this organization. So fire me. I'll take a year off. I'll go to Cabo for a year and I'll lay on a beach and I'll relax and I'll de-stress. And then I'll come back in a year like Bill Belichick's doing right now. And I'll be the number one potential hire and I'll get a bunch of money and I'll live happily ever after. And you guys will be stuck with Brock Purdy or whoever you guys decide what you want to do. Not my problem anymore. I don't know. I can see him doing that, but we still got 6 games left.
He seems like he needs a non-football cleanse.
Yeah.
That's what his face looks like. That's what his answers sound like. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's an NFL top 5, top 6 kind of a coach. But there's been mistakes here. They passed on Mahomes. They've screwed up all their number ones except for the ones that were real obvious. Bosa, they got 1 right. They got 8 wrong.
They got some bad contracts on the books for a while.
You just extended Ayuk. He's hurt. He's not going to play next year.
What's he going to be when he comes back? I don't know.
Right. And then the other one, the big one is Debo. And this is one of the topics I'm touching tonight on Niners Nightly. What do you do? To me, this is like a major, major question for the 49ers. Do they extend Debo or do they cut Debo? I know extending him sounds laughable at this point, but when you really think about where they're at, an extension for Debo might be the answer. I mean, if you cut him next year, I was looking at some of these numbers today, Grant. This is pretty amazing. If they cut him, they're going to have nearly a seven. He's scheduled to make 17 million next year, close to it. If they release him or trade him, it's going to result in about a $30 million dead cap hit.
Well, they'd have to do what they did with Armstead and do the post June 1 designation.
Right.
That'd be the way to do it.
Yeah, and they could make the pain a little less.
And that's all because they restructured his contract this offseason, which was a mistake.
Right. So, but I mean, a lot of people are saying, well, maybe they'll extend him, in that $8 to $15 million range for like 3-4 years and, kind of wind him down. But I don't know. I mean, that to me is going to be interesting. That's a major decision this offseason. Do you extend him and try at a more reasonable rate and try to wind him down slowly? Because we know he's Kyle's favorite weapon, or do they rip the Band-Aid off, take the massive cap hit, maybe do it a little less painlessly by doing it after June 1st, but moving on from Debo? Because then you won't have Debo, you won't have Ayuk, you'll have a 31-year-old Kittle, and you'll have CMC with 2 Achilles. So your potential for next year does not look really good. To me, that's the more depressing part. It's not that they're not going anywhere this year or their playoffs look like a pipe dream. It's that they look kind of fucked for next year.
The thing with Debo to me is I feel like he has to go. And like, however they got to figure it out financially, I think he's the culture of the team. The bravado, dancing before the game, not performing, and then pointing the finger at someone else and not holding yourself accountable. Like, that's like the combination from hell. You can't have that.
Yeah.
I'm the coach's favorite player. I get to be the guy in front of it, all up in the video, all in the camera's face. And I get all the credit when things go well. And when things go bad, I skirt blame and point at someone else. And I don't talk about it afterward. Like, that's gotta go. Can't have that on this team.
I was hearing a little Suge Knight there.
That's right. All in the video.
All up in dancing. The videos.
That's Debo.
Yeah,
he's the Diddy of this team.
I mean, it's funny too, because, some people say they can't even see that Debo's lost a step. Really? I mean, they used to run him on end arounds and it would go for 20, 25 yards. It's now going for -2 yards. Nobody notices that he's not getting there as fast, or he's not running as hard, or it's not as effective. I mean, come on, it's obvious.
And it doesn't seem to affect him. Like with Christian McCaffrey, you can see that he's like eating his liver. It's really killing him that he's not what he used to be. Debo seems like he's like, I still got my burst. It's not my fault. Kyle still likes me. It's the special teams' fault. Like, there's something about him, the fact that he's a captain, that he's acting this way this year, that is really off-putting to me. And maybe I'm overreacting, but I think that the Niners' culture issues, the toxic nature of their locker room, he's a big part of it. I'm not saying he's all of it, but he's a big part of it. And I think that the boombox era needs to be retired. The boombox era. Sorry.
Here's the other thing I think it has to be mentioned. When you blow off the media, are you really leading? Are you the leader when you blow off your obligations? Show me a family that rewards the child that blows off his obligations. Show me the business that celebrates an employee who blows off his obligations. Is there going to be any penalty at all for him? He's there to answer the questions when they're like, Debo, you are great. Thanks, Kay. I appreciate you having me on. But when the questions are, hey, Debo, you just said, lock into the kicker, and you had a ball go right through your hands, 2 of them, one that led to an interception. Is it maybe you should lock in? Maybe you need to lock in better? No, he's nowhere to be found. He no-shows. He pulls a LeBron James and no-shows.
But it's even worse. It's even worse because he has a podcast on top of this. You don't want to talk to the media, but you want to talk to the fans about nothing. Nah, man, like, you're a football player. You called out your teammates. There's things you need to talk about, and you're like running away from them. You have your own podcast, and it's the most boring podcast in sports because you won't address the elephant in the room. If you would just talk about your play and your incident with Jake Moody and Tabor Pepper, you would have the #1 podcast in the NFL, but you won't do it. And it's a bad business decision, and it makes you look like a non-captain, a non-leader.
Well, and you know what's happened is, in people who don't maybe understand what they're watching as far as speed and that kind of thing, what you're looking at is, yeah, it's a totally different kind of speed to run up the field on a kickoff return than it is to catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage, make somebody miss, and then turn that into a big play. He's lost his quickness. He's lost his explosive first step, his second step. He's got gather speed now. So yeah, if you're gonna put him at kickoff return and let him take 5, 6, 7, 8 steps before the defense is on him, yeah, he will have that gather speed that all big-bodied guys have. But he doesn't have the quickness. He doesn't have the change of direction. He doesn't have the route running ability, and he never really had ball skills. So at the end of the day, we're talking about kind of a subpar wide receiver who doesn't have great ball skills and doesn't separate and doesn't beat man coverage. He's lost a lot of that quickness.
His kick return was the best play of the season for him. And I think what's really funny is that his most famous incident in the season was him getting into a fight with the specialists. And I think the proper punishment for him, and he deserves it, is to be benched on offense and to be a full-time specialist. You now get to be in the meetings and sit right next to Jake Moody, and Tabor Peppers on your left and Jake's on your right. And you guys get to talk about special teams all the time, because now you're a core special teamer, Debo. Go make the team better.
Should they strip him of his captaincy for blowing off the media and not leading the team?
No, they should have stripped him of his captaincy for hitting a teammate. That's when you do it. Forget us. Forget us. When you hit a teammate, that's when you sacrifice yourself as a captain. And the fact that Kyle Shanahan blamed Tabor Pepper for making too big of a deal of it just shows you that, Debo Samuel, Kyle Shanahan will enable Debo Samuel as long as they're on the team together, which is another reason I feel like Kyle needs to go.
Let's not confuse this thing, though. It ain't about us. We're just the conduit to the public. We're the conduit to the fans. We're just there to deliver the message from A to B. So if he's blowing us off, he's not blowing us off, folks. He's blowing you off. He's blowing the people in the chat off.
Why does Nick Bosa talk after every game? Why does Kittle talk after every game? Why does Fred Warner talk every game? Because they take their job seriously. They take their responsibility seriously, and they take the fans seriously.
The word is accountable. They are accountable. Leaders are accountable. That's why Dieter was the one who came up with strip him of the captaincy, and it seems a little dramatic. But if I can't have a captain who's not accountable, and if he's not gonna face the music after a loss, anybody can face the music. Anybody can walk outside and everybody's cheering their name. It takes a lot more intestinal fortitude to answer tough questions about failing. And that's what he blew off.